Welcome everybody to the show. I have Ella Hough on here today. I'm super excited. We're going to touch on a bunch of different subjects going on in the Bitcoin world. Ella, welcome to the show. Happy to have you. How we feeling? How we doing?
Very well. Today was my last day of classes. So I'm so happy to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. So last day of classes. So you're a senior. Just to give everybody a background here, I'm not going to gas up Ella too much, but she's pretty accomplished for what she's done so far. So you started the Cornell Bitcoin Club. You're a senior at Cornell. You also started the Bitcoin Students Network, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Awesome. And you just casually spoke at the African Bitcoin conference this year as well. All right.
It did.
So there's a
Yes,
few
got to share.
things, and you did give a TED talk recently. So those are the just to give people a little background of who you are and what you've done so far. And obviously you're a senior at Cornell, so in short order you've kind of done all these things. I want to talk about whatever you want to talk about first. You have a lot of stuff you're working on. What is your favorite thing that you're working on currently within Bitcoin?
Yeah, let's see. Well, I'm super fortunate that I get to do a lot of cool things. I mean, just the opportunity to work in Bitcoin and be a part of this community is a huge gift. And so everything I get to do, I'm grateful for. And I imagine you might feel the same way with your podcast and other things that you do. But let's see. I guess, what I'm most focused on right now, I just defended my thesis yesterday, so that'll come out, that'll be done in the next couple days. So that has recently had all of my headspace. But one thing that I'm really excited about is the study we're doing at Cornell with the Brooks Tech Policy Institute. So Sarah Krebs, who is a professor in the government department here, she is also a Bitcoin Policy Institute fellow, and look her up if you're listening. She's wonderful, but she is leading the basically first study to ever look at Bitcoin adoption across 25 countries around the world. And so historically, firms like Chainalysis have done crypto adoption indexes, but there has never really been something just looking at Bitcoin. And we did also include stable coins in the survey. But we have just kind of gotten all of the survey data back from that. So we did 25,000 surveys across the countries. And we're also doing 250 interviews, about 10 in each of these countries, very gratefully supported by the Reynolds Foundation and the Human Rights Foundation. And so I would say getting to be a part of this project, which we have also included about 10 people from the Cornell Bitcoin Club in as well, has been something that I, really enjoy thinking about. And then, of course, always the Bitcoin Students Network. See, I just list all of the projects that I get to work on.
I was just letting you cook. No, I
Yeah.
love it. So a few things. The study that you guys are doing. This was I believe I watched kind of your talk on this earlier. What are you guys hoping? What are the hopes that you'll like? What do you guys hope you'll gain? I guess from this study. What are you hoping it tells you? How do you hope it kind of pushes us forward?
Yeah, so I would say in one word is nuance. We don't truly know how Bitcoin adoption is really look like quantitatively. What does that look like? And then also really getting because it's kind of a two-part survey. So maybe I'll explain it again. So we have the survey data, which this began looking at 178 countries, which we then scored along like 18 different criteria and narrowed down the list to 25 countries around the world across all different types of categories. And in about 1,000 people per country, they answered a survey, which was like, actually, I think it might have been almost 21 pages, which I love the number of connections,
Yeah.
covering all sorts of information from, of course, demographic information, but have you heard of Bitcoin? Other things. What are your concerns, risks, motivations? And then doing the surveys, or sorry, excuse me, the interviews to really get the story elements to complement all of the data. to my knowledge, there has not really been ever a study in this format before done. There is a paper in like 2020-ish of a group basically sending out surveys to about 1.4 million local Bitcoin users, and then getting like 66,000 survey results back. So that exists, but the interview piece, I believe, is more unique.
Yeah.
And what do we hope, really comes of this? So it's a 2-year study. There's kind of 5 main motivations and goals to it. As I mentioned, knowledge. How are people using Bitcoin? How are people using stable coins? Are they? And then number 2, what are the factors that drive Bitcoin adoption or hold it back? Number 3, how can this inform policymakers on, regulation, how people are using it? And then as well, how can it provide information to businesses about what products need to be built, or educators about what is not being taught or how could we do better? And then number 4, hopefully kind of, within it, providing education on tools like Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Because the survey, it's random samples. We're really trying our best to not, Bitcoiners
Not
in this.
cherry
It's,
pick. Yeah.
it's a contracted firm that ran the study or the survey. And then in the end, we'll produce a report. It'll come out next year and really educate people about what Bitcoin's impact is on society. And all the data will be open sourced. So you can use it as you talk to, your own policymakers, as you go about your own involvements. So really trying to embody the open source element as well of Bitcoin.
No, I love that. When you guys were doing the survey, did it just include Bitcoin specific topics, or was it also
No.
like, because you mentioned the Human Rights Foundation, so I kind of want to go down that route. Like, were some of these countries people living under tyranny? Like,
Yeah, for sure.
what was that aspect?
Yeah, so for instance, like Russia and Ukraine are both in it. We also have
Yep.
countries like Switzerland, or like the US as well, as kind of
Yeah,
more like
yeah,
base case in a sense. We have like India, Brazil, Argentina, China. So, we kind of have the BRICS representation.
yeah, yep.
There's, I think, 3 countries in Africa: Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa. So it's really a wide range
Diverse.
of
Yeah.
countries, yeah, that are in it. And sorry, remind me, what was the second half of your question?
Well, that's one of the funny parts about doing a live show.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
don't remember.
I
No
don't
worries.
remember what it was.
Um,
But no, that pretty much
yeah.
covered it. I was just gonna say, like,
Okay.
so you were doing work with, like, the Human Rights Foundation. Obviously, is a part of
Oh,
it.
yes.
So
Thank you. I remember. So you asked what are some of like the questions? Did it just cover Bitcoin knowledge? And actually, towards the end of the survey, there is a section just kind of getting like a baseline financial knowledge. I think there's like a question about interest and how much money you'd have in the future if you earned this amount.
got it.
Yeah, so there's mentions of things like that. In some countries, the survey is edited slightly. Like, for instance, the China survey, in Hong Kong, I believe as well. We took out, do you actually own Bitcoin or use it? Because,
Yeah,
mindful of what the regulation is like in the countries. And I think there's actually a team of professors that were more kind of intimately involved with the survey, but it's also translating it accurately into all
yeah,
of these
yeah.
languages and dialects is quite a challenge. And yeah, so it tried to be very thorough. It's long, but so it's hopefully people will see all the data when
Yeah,
it's all
no,
out.
that's great. I love that it's
Yeah.
open source. So I want to real quick, like, let's take kind of a step back. I want to know your story. Like, how did you get involved in this? Obviously, I would imagine, in your early 20s, at Cornell. I looked on the website. You've been in Bitcoin since 2021. Like, what drove you to it? And where did it all kind of begin for you?
Yeah, and I think this time this year I feeling a lot of kind of full circle gratitude reflection moments. And just speaking of the Human Rights Foundation, I would say it truly began for me when I was at the Oslo Freedom Forum held by the Human Rights Foundation in 2022. But I first ever really learned about Bitcoin my senior year of high school. And so this was like spring of 2021, or actually, no, like more winter, spring.
Yeah.
And I was in a class called Blockchain Technologies. And I was in that class because I was a part of a certificate program called the Technology, Innovation, and Entrepreneurship program.
Yep.
And I chose the innovation strand to study, and this course fulfilled one of those class requirements. But it was really all just presented, taught as kind of distributed ledger technology. The human side was completely removed, truly.
Yep.
Like, it was a lot of supply chain and how is Dunkin' Donuts tracking their coffee beans using blockchain, for instance, was one of the projects.
The real important stuff, like how is Dunkin' tracking their coffee?
Yeah. And so I had just gotten back from what was supposed to be a year abroad in China. I was studying in Beijing. And when I first landed in Beijing, I didn't even know hello. Literally knew nothing. Not my host family, teachers, classmates, language. And I had incredible teachers and host family when I was there. And when I was there, one character that really stuck with me was the characters, there's two, for filial piety. Just basically a central tenet of Confucianism that when you are growing up, your parents will care for you, look out for you. But when you have grown up and your parents are older, you will support them. And
Yep.
one of the characters visually shows this relationship. And so it really kind of spoke to me in context. I was also soon starting working at IBM with how can we kind of embed ethics in technology, in AI specifically. So that's where my head interest was when I was learning about Bitcoin, at the time also blockchain. Was really kind of like the human side of these things that are going to potentially change our world. And so it went over my head until I went to the Human Rights Foundation and sat in the Oslo Concerthus, the concert hall,
Yep.
and just heard the stories of people all over the world who, at the time, they didn't yet have a Bitcoin true track like they do now. But really how Bitcoin is a tool for freedom and protecting humans 24/7, 365. And it was on the plane ride home where it really kind of clicked for me, or became much more apparent, why Bitcoin matters and why I just sort of felt like I needed to learn more about it. That kicked off all the stuff that I've done at school.
No, I love it. And then you came home and it seems like you just kind of went gung-ho, like most of us do when we find out about it. It's like, how do we take our skill set and apply it to this? And, for you, your skill set is you're clearly brilliant and you're very good at putting things together. For me, my skill set is rambling in front of a microphone. So we're all, improving the network in our own ways. No, I love that. So what do you, like... I want to get into, I think we met because I had published an episode talking about Gen Z and the impact that Bitcoin was having on it. Have your values changed at all since you got into Bitcoin after kind of learning, I guess more how money works and by proxy how the world works? And what I mean by that is I was very much, and I'm probably about 10 years older than you, but still in that younger generation. I was very much raised in the tax the rich and the, hey, things are really messed up. We got to have everybody pay their fair share. That was my ethos, and my entire value, my entire, I guess, value system changed. Did that happen similar to you, or were you kind of always in this camp?
I've thought about this, and I think as I think deeper, no, not necessarily. I think Bitcoin truly gets at what it means to be human. And when I say that, I mean that I think most of us are Bitcoiners before we necessarily know it. I think it the values it embodies, this idea of, protecting the individual, acting well towards one another, uh, kind of openness,
Yeah.
not being coercive or exploitative or repressing others. I think so. To go back to China, when I was learning Mandarin, I felt like it was a little bit like unlocking a safe. And what I mean by that is you look at a character and it just looks all unknown, like you could never really understand it. And I think when you first see Bitcoin, maybe you either think, oh, I know exactly what that is and it's a scam, whatever, or you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm not what I hear from students a lot, not a finance person, not an econ, not an engineer. I can't understand that. But similar to how you start learning Chinese, like you learn the very, base parts of how the characters are constructed, and then you start seeing that pattern appear in others, and you start unlocking meaning. For me, I felt like it's more just helped revealed what I really care about, and I think the values still of how I was raised. And so I would say not necessarily changed my values, but maybe just enhanced or sort of helped me discover what I feel gives me purpose or, why I wake up each day. So yeah, and that's why I really think it's within a lot of people. It's just kind of figuring out what framework of understanding Bitcoin works for you.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, I sort of when I feel kind of lost in trying to understand Bitcoin, sometimes I just look back to, okay, what are like the core roots of it, like grassroots adoption, or
Yeah.
in this instance, mining. The reward of Bitcoin goes away after 2140. It was never really just about the Bitcoin. Like it's the reward for doing the work. And I think similarly, it's not just about I don't want Bitcoin just because I want Bitcoin. It's like what's on the other side, the ability to live your life, pursue your passion. And so that's some more of the message when I talk to my friends. Like, you don't need to change your interests to be interested in Bitcoin or think you have to give them up to be interested in Bitcoin. It's more just a tool in your toolbox, and you still have to act and do work. But it's just like this thing that helps you feel like you're doing what you're called to do.
Yeah. I like what you said there a lot about like, it just enhances our values and Bitcoin being a, like innately human thing, which is funny because it's digital and because it doesn't live in the physical realm. But that's a really good point, is like these values of self-sovereignty and freedom and power to the individual. Like those are things that we all inherently grow up feeling, right?
Mm-hmm.
And wanting to feel, and they're almost things that are taught out of us. So the fact that this brings us back to it is a lot more accurate kind of representation of it. When you're talking to your friends and people in your age group, do you feel like a lot of them are getting it, or do you feel like they're still kind of in that other camp of like, hey, uh, shit sucks, for lack of a better term. You know what I mean? Like, I'm never going to get out of this. Or do you feel that, do you feel them kind of switching back over?
I think it's truly different for every person, and it depends a little bit. I think uh, your past experience can influence a lot. Like, I have a lot of friends who are not from the U.S., and so I think they're a little bit more open to
Yep.
truly the impact that Bitcoin has, living outside of a dollar system, having family that, lives outside of the dollar system. Um, and so this morning, actually, I met a fellow student here for coffee, and I met him. He came up to me after the TED Talk a couple weeks ago, and today and he, we chatted a little bit, but then they, had to turn the theater back over. And so we just, set up some time to chat. And so that was today. And one of the first things he said was, I pretty much sort of disagreed with everything, or thought I was going to disagree with everything you said when I heard about the talk, or kind of saw Bitcoin was a part of it. But I'm so curious by people who are really passionate about a subject, and I wanted to understand why. And then, like, for context, he is really interested in like human-centered math and how math impacts humans. And so
Whoa,
before
that's a
our,
perfect. That's
it's
perfect.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
And so before, I, when we said at the time, I was like, hey, here's this article. I think it was from Unchained about like Bitcoin's equation, like the math equation. And so he read it before we chatted. Um, and so again, I think it's just like sometimes you don't know the right questions to ask. And actually, when I started college, I was a computer science major and also wanted to study Chinese. But then I took a class on creativity. I was like, oh, I really need to be better at asking questions and trying to think differently. Um, who knows if I'm any better at asking questions now that I switched, but I think it's important. But so when you talk to people, it's not about, saying the message that I want to say. It's way more about listening to what they're
Yep.
interested in and what they're concerned about. And so with that, I think you also kind of have to like build up a relationship with the person of what do they care about, trust that you want the best for them. Um, and so I think right now my generation is a little bit mixed because we're never taught in school anything about money. We kind of feel the influx of inflation, but maybe don't truly know what the problem is. Mainstream media is all over the place in what is
Yeah.
true and what is false.
Yeah.
And so just to circle back to what I was saying, I think at the end of the day, I always tend towards the optimistic side of things, but with effort and work, it doesn't just happen. But I do think my generation will be open to it and come around. And also, Bitcoin was born in Gen Z. And so I think it's a natural fit. And in many other ways, we're already a very digital generation.
Yeah, I agree. And I love the point that you made too. This is what I've been trying to like, we always hear people on Twitter, how do I orange pill people that, are in my life? And it's like, it's always about them. Like if I start talking to my buddy who is super liberal about the financial rewards of Bitcoin, he's not going to be interested in it, but he may be interested in how, the grid in Texas hasn't been shut down in 3 years because of Bitcoin mining, right? Or he may
Mm-hmm.
be interested in all of the work that Alex Gladstein is doing over at the Human Rights Foundation. So it really is just knowing
Yeah.
the person, that you're talking to. I don't know how much you want to talk about it because it hasn't come out yet. Can we kind of talk about the TED Talk a little bit and what the
Yeah.
context was of it? And
So context of it is I transferred to Cornell my sophomore year of college, right after coming back from the Oslo Freedom Forum, and I learned that there was a TEDx Cornell. So it's TEDx, not necessarily just making the clarification that it's not TED on the big stage,
yeah,
but
yeah,
still
but still,
a stage.
yeah, TEDx.
Um, and so I believe I submitted an application that year. I know I did last year. And so this was calling it like third time's a charm. That I was able to, you do the application, interview, proposal, many rounds. I started this year's process in like October or September or something like that. And it is obviously about Bitcoin, but sort of the larger message, and I think you can get it from the title, In Yourself You Trust, more about not outsourcing your responsibility and really working today to capture your time kind of for tomorrow. And so that's the gist of it.
No, I love it. Do you think that you getting approved, or not approved, or application approved, I don't know what the technical terminology
Yeah.
is, but you being able to do it this year and not necessarily being able to do it the years prior, do you think that that was a result of Bitcoin becoming more popular in the mainstream, or do you think it was a result of you, you know, I guess maybe sharpening up the topic, or like what would you contribute that factor to?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I know the theme this year was Uncharted. But truly, I mean, I grew up Christian. I, really feel a strong sense of God in my life. I don't think I was ready the past 2 years.
Yeah.
I don't think I spent like, I think there were 14 drafts of this TED Talk. I spent
Got
many
it.
months writing it. And so, it comes out.
Well,
But
I know
yeah,
when
I
we
just
when
think,
we when we first talked
yeah,
about you coming on the show before, you were like,
yeah.
"I have this thing on May 8th. I can't do anything until that." I was like, "All right, got it. We're good." But sorry, go ahead, continue.
Yeah, so I think things kind of come into your life of a mix of when you're ready and not ready for them. And so I like to do things that scare me and that I don't really think I'm ready for. But I just think this year my message was, well, actually, applications have been the same pretty much. Timing just works out.
Timing works out. No, that's awesome. I'm excited for to obviously check it out. Are you working with the Bitcoin Policy Institute on any other things, or is it just, it was just this survey that they're doing?
Yeah, so actually, BPI, first of all, they're wonderful, love them. They are not necessarily involved in the survey. They're
Got it.
certainly huge supporters. They just kindly hosted us for the webinar, but it's the similar acronym, the Brooks Tech Policy Institute here
Got
at
it.
Cornell, that is really behind it, leading it. And then the Human Rights Foundation and Reynolds Foundation are supporting it, but Professor Krebs is a fellow at BPI.
Okay,
And
that's where I was
so
getting
that's
that's
the
where I was
relation.
getting
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
convoluted. Got it.
Yeah.
And then I wanted to, I guess, kind of see. So, what have you kind of found through like the Freedom Forum? Like, I want you to speak a little bit on what you've seen and how Bitcoin's kind of helping in third world countries now. You know what I mean? Obviously, between what you know from that and the Human Rights Foundation, I feel like I have a decent understanding of it, but quite frankly, people are tired of listening to me yap about it. So I would rather have you kind of explain a little bit of it.
Yeah, so I think for me, I guess 3 years ago was when I went and was sitting in, the hall, and really the title of Alex Gladstein's book, Check Your Financial Privilege, I just embarrassingly just didn't realize the effect that money has on our life. I mean, I just grew up in the US. I grew up in the world reserve currency. You could always, I remember, when I was old enough to open a bank account, and I was like, here's all my quarters. And I went, I got like a
Yeah.
debit card. Like, saving was really instilled in me from when I was little. And so, all these things just always worked. And then, excuse me, I was sitting, in there hearing all these stories just about kind of like the Ayn Rand quote about how property rights underlie, all of your other rights. And just if you can't, economically speak and save, then you are just really opened up to be repressed in many other ways. But, more tangibly recently, you mentioned the Africa Bitcoin conference. Farida Nabarema was one of the kind of biggest supporters of my journey in Bitcoin. I met her at Bitcoin Prague, and so I'm hugely grateful to her. But while we were there, had the opportunity to go visit one of Gridless's sites in Kenya, and I'm actually going to get
Yep.
to go back and work with them this summer in a couple weeks. And they took us to the site, and it's at the bottom of a very steep hill. And there is kind of like one or two shipping containers with about 100 ASIC miners, plugged in. And then a couple other shipping containers for, I believe, the turbines, taking in the power from the river. And in the surrounding area, that one site now provides power for, it's like 11,000 individuals, I think a couple hundred businesses. I might have these numbers a little bit wrong, but I think many of us are familiar with there's no high energy or rich, high energy country. Well, there's no, rich on any definition of capital, like, social capital, wealth, intellectual capital, cultural capital, in low energy environments. Like humans, we can't, get up and do our things each day if we have low energy. Like we need energy. And so, I think those talks, the experiences I've seen thus far, it's like Bitcoin is literally energizing. It's literally empowering of people. And for me, it's like, this is why I want to work on this. I think this is the greatest thing we have for really the human flourishing and kind of shift in human agency for anyone, anywhere.
Yeah, no, I love that you brought up Gridless because I heard them on a few of the people from that company on Preston Pish's podcast a few months back.
Yeah.
And just for everybody listening, Gridless and Ella, please correct me if I'm wrong here. Gridless is working in majority of their work is in Africa, and what they're doing is they're essentially putting up Bitcoin mining pop-up shops essentially that are providing power to villages that have never had it because it's not profitable for power companies to actually invest infrastructure there. Do I have that right? For the most part?
Yeah, you got it. Yep,
okay, good. I just wanted to provide that segue. No, that's amazing. So what are the plans after you graduate from Cornell? What's you've already done so much. What's the next step in your mind for what you want to focus working on?
Yes, and quick plug for Alana Media Vias. I might be pronounced her last name wrong. Film Dirty Coin, as well as the short film Stranded, which sort of tells the story of Gridless. Joe Nakamoto has also made some good documentaries about Gridless if people want to actually see it, what's happening. So yes, graduation is in a couple weeks, and then going to the Bitcoin conference. We are doing a student pass again, and some student programming, or not official programming, but kind of a student learning section, and then going straight from there to Kenya to be with Gridless for a couple months. And then I will be starting full-time back at Galaxy where I interned this summer. I'm actually going to be on their research team, all things Bitcoin. And then, of course, the Students Network and the study and, the other side projects.
Yeah. Are you, so you're still going to obviously run the Bitcoin Students Network, afterwards? Awesome.
Yep. I've transitioned the Cornell Bitcoin Club over this semester to 2 new leaders who are doing a great job. But I'll still be involved with the Students Network.
No, that's awesome. And you guys you're graduating, and then you and some of the members from the Bitcoin Club are going to Vegas for the Bitcoin conference? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, I don't know yet how many from the club here will be able to make the trek over, but I think there should be maybe 2 or 3 of us. But the Bitcoin Students Network partnered with the Bitcoin Conference to do a free student ticket. So last year we did it, and we had about 1,400 applications for the ticket, and we held a big student meetup. We had about 300 people who were there for that, and so it's really, getting younger generations are really the future of Bitcoin, and helping get them involved and a part of the story and a part of the conversation. And I just think you can't replace the kind of the physical interactions and the learning that can happen, spontaneous and planned. And so that's what we'll be doing.
I love that. I'm excited for the Bitcoin ecosystem to continue to grow. I love what Orange Pill app is doing, hosting in-person meetups for a lot of people all over the country. It seems like we can get very addicted. I'm talking to me too. We can get very addicted to, Twitter and X, especially when we're in, kind of the Bitcoin ecosystem. So I'm very pumped for all of these tools to kind of be out there. And the fact that you guys got 300 people and
well, there were way more than that were actually there. It's just we did like a kind of a pizza party one of the days before, and so people were there for that. Yeah.
Okay, got it. So there's even more. So what you're telling me is Gen Z is working. They're working on it. They're in. They're getting there.
They're getting there. Yeah.
Yeah. No.
at different speeds around the world. Some of our nodes in across Africa are really doing an incredible job, especially on their clubs. Canada as well, Mexico, Brazil. That's yeah, it's happening all over the place.
Why do you think that is for those other countries? Do you think it's just I mean, for the South, I would say Latin America and Africa, it's probably currency devaluation. For Canada, I would say it's probably maybe a little bit government getting a little bit too comfortable, kind of shutting people's bank accounts down. Is that kind of the feedback that you've gotten?
Um, well, I think it's a little bit of like the reverse Cantillon effect. So, typically the closer you are to the money printer, the less pain you feel. The
Yeah.
further you are, the more pain as you feel the effects of, not being able to save or earn in the, dominant currency.
Yep.
And so I think it's like with that, you kind of have a greater rise in consciousness. Not that you're unconscious before or, here today, but you just feel it. You see it more.
Yep.
Like I think it was at the beginning of April, it was Libya, I think, that devalued the currency by like 13% on a Sunday overnight. That doesn't happen here.
Well, that'll cause some
And
people to wake up for sure.
yeah, there's that. I also think, you know, different regulations around the world or who can even have a bank account in ways or, um, you know, like different avenues for building and preserving wealth. Um, yeah, I mean, you saw it this summer, like in Kenya, it was I mean, I'm going to credit Abu Bakr Nur Khalil wrote a really great piece in Forbes on this. Basically, the like hashtag, I think it was reject finance bill. The central bank wanted to impose all of these regulations that would be, really harmful for, everyday life. And basically, the students, I think in Kenya, it's like 70% of the population is under age 35. Really, kind of started a movement and ultimately it didn't go through. And so I think, students, young people really have a voice and more power than they know. Like, I think most recently in Serbia, there was another big student kind of like peaceful protest. And so, yeah, going back to the title of the TED Talk, like you have a voice, you can use it. You are, I think often, you have this mindset when you're in college or school that there's all these boxes you need to check, or that without maybe a degree or a diploma, it's like you're not qualified or smart enough to really have an opinion or be right, that people that are older must know more than you. Um, but I think we have to trust ourselves in doing research and forming opinions. And so, yeah, I really hope that, Gen Z will be active in learning about this. And they are. Like, it's not, sure, a lot of us grew up with like the participation, but every person I talk to is really a self-starter, high agency. And so I think it'll come.
No, that's awesome. I was going to ask what you wanted to leave everybody with, but I think you just beautifully knocked it out of the park saying it that way. Um, so no, that was fantastic. I think you summed it up very well. So what I
Sorry,
mean,
Trey,
I can
I
still ask you.
cannot hear anything. Oh, sorry. I can't really hear anything of what you just said in your previous
N-
sentence. There was kind of
no,
static. May you say that again?
you're good. I was gonna ask you what you wanted to leave everybody with, but you pretty well said that last piece of,
Oh,
you knocked it out of the park. So I think that was
thank you.
kind of a good spot to leave it. Why don't I'm still gonna ask you though, what anything else that you want to leave with anybody? Otherwise, just tell people where they can find you, and I'll throw it in the show notes for you.
Yes, sorry. Okay, so there's something happened with the signal. But I think you said anything I want to leave with someone. And actually, I wanted to share Chain Code Labs is offering their 100%, scholarship for college. It's just you over the summer, you work on Bitcoin. And so for any students that are listening that are interested in, becoming more involved in the space, definitely I would check out that resource or opportunity. And then as well, would love to have you involved with the Students Network if you are a student that, maybe thinks you're the only one interested in Bitcoin or beginning to be interested in Bitcoin. And you maybe want help, just connecting with others that are a part of the network. You don't, yet have to start your own, or you would like to kind of bring this conversation to your peer group. Please reach out. Would love to help. And, also just love to meet and connect.
I love that. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Everybody that's listening, I will have Ella's contact info in the show notes. And we'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Trey.